views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open 2.0. I'm your host, Tariq Lawhorn. The Bronx is Blooming engages communities and youth in environmental stewardship through the beautification of local parks. They make it their mission to revitalize under-resourced open spaces in the Bronx and inspire communities to advocate for their parkland. Here now to tell us more about the Bronx is Blooming, we have Jennifer Bogran. Welcome to the show, Miss Bogran.
Thank you for having me.
So, Ms. Bogran, may you tell our viewers a little more about your background?
Sure. I have a background in landscape design. I'm a landscape designer. As well, I have done a lot of work both in youth development and community-driven horticulture. So I have worked with youth ages anywhere from kids which are like 2 to 5 up to older youth, in the 18 to 24-year-old range. But in terms of community-driven horticulture, I used to work for the Parks Department, the New York City Parks Department, doing community outreach and gardening through one of their programs. Then I ran a program for a small nonprofit in the Northwest Bronx doing community-driven horticulture, which is what I call what we do, right? We are going out there and we are revitalizing parks, one park, one flower bed, one tree pit at a time sometimes, right? And then now I started the Bronx is Blooming in 2011. And we have been active for 5.5 years now, and we've been doing just a lot of restoration and revitalization work in parks with everyone from community groups to school groups to colleges and universities to companies and corporate service day events. We just do a little bit of everything.
Do you feel like working with younger adults is much easier than adults, like over 24?
I don't know. I wouldn't say easier. I would say different. I think sometimes you have young people who just become very inspired, and that's really wonderful, and we've seen that with a lot of our students. But then I think there are also a lot of adults who come out and work with us who are very inspired, who are either gardeners at home and just love to have a day off of work and be out in the dirt, or who are just inspired to be out there and taking care of their parks.
But do you feel like working with younger adults, you're fertilizing the future?
We have a program called the Program for Leaders Advancing Their Community's Environment, which is the PLACE program.
Yes.
And what we're doing in that program is we're working with Bronx high school students and college students to create a sense of place around their local environment through their local parks. And so in that sense, yes, we are definitely working to help offer knowledge about how important our parks and communities' environmental spaces are. And our students, they work out in the park. Generally, we've done a summer one, and then our PLACE program is now expanding year-round.
Yes.
And during the summer, our students have a college-age mentor, and it's a group of 5 to 10 college leaders, 5 to 10 high school leaders who are tasked to work with a college mentor and care for one park or green space in the Bronx. And what they do is they work out in those green spaces for the summer. They learn about an environmental problem affecting the Bronx and how their actions can help to ameliorate or help to slow the problem. One thing that we work specifically with is stormwater management and some of the pollution that's going into our rivers. and we do a lot of work taking care of young trees, just like we're working with young students. We're also growing, we're growing the trees and the students at the same time, you could say. But I think it's really, what I see is not so much that it's us, but it's our leaders, our mentors who are college-age mentors. They are learning all these skills, and then they're turning over and teaching them to the high school students. And then our high school place leaders are then learning that material and using it to go out and lead groups of volunteers. So while we teach our students and we give them skill sets, right, and we give them knowledge about how to be a good leader, we then let them go out and practice that instead of just, I'm sure you've learned, it's so much to sit in a classroom and learn something, but where you really learn is when you go out and do it yourself and you stumble and you make mistakes and you're like, okay, well, I tried leading that way and it was awful, it didn't work at all, right? And so then they go back to their mentor and they say, well, I was telling them what to do and they weren't listening to me, and then they learn how to transition that.
Leadership skills.
They learn how to transition to that into becoming a leader who works with their volunteers, because that's how, exactly, because as someone who has probably been in a lot of classes, that it's much more interesting to work with someone than to have them tell you what to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're going to have to take a quick break, but stay tuned. There's more Open 2.0 coming up next.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on a sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
Hey, look, it's those guys.
Let's go, Pearly Whites, man.
Ooh, cute.
Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
Hey girl, what's your name? What's up? How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Sir, go and step out of the vehicle for me.
Yes, sir. See ya, buddy. Today, Sean's got a hearing. We'll see how it goes. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with Jennifer from the Bronx is Blooming. So, Miss Jennifer,
Yes.
like in your own words, like what is the importance of having an organization like this in the Bronx?
I think, as in any community, it is very important to, our goal is to create a culture of stewardship, like environmental stewardship in our communities, right? And so I think in any community, it's very important to remember that we're not the only people using the world that we live in, right? And so I think what we're doing really is working with our mentors and with our high school students to think about their space in a different way. And I think a lot of the students who come to us, what I've found is, I had a short conversation with one of my students. He had been with us for about 2 weeks at this point, and we were just walking from point A to point B, right? And in that time, I just said, what do you think about this? Like, have you learned anything? Are you getting anything out of the summer? And his response was that when he started with us, trees all were trees to him, right? Like it was all kind of, they were green, they were big, and they were trees. Like that was just what a tree was. And he never really noticed the plants that were growing behind fences. And through working with us, like on week 1, he learned about the fact that there were all different types of trees, and they all, they grow differently, they provide different things. Some tend to have more like fall color, and some tend to have like beautiful spring flowers, right? Yes. And also he learned about one of the invasive plants that we work with is called Artemisia vulgaris, and the common name for it is mugwort. A lot of our students decided to call it the Harry Potter plant because it, sounds like a Harry Potter name. And so what he explained to me is that in the week since he'd been working with us, just walking to work and home, he would notice that mugwort was everywhere, and all these invasive species were all over the place, and just that there was so much need for what we were doing, and not all the tree pits were cared for. And that was in 2 weeks of a summer of working with us. He stayed with us for a 6-week program. And I think it's really about changing how one thinks and one uses their space. And I think environmental organizations are so important in all communities because they get us to once again go back and say, oh, it's not just for us, especially in a place where we live in these buildings that people have designed in these, in our concrete jungles, as they say. Like, it's very important to think about the fact, oh, there actually is an environment in the city with us.
Do you think, creating organizations like about environment will be harder? Like later on, like as the future is progressing, we're becoming more technology reliant. Mm-hmm. So do you think it'll be harder?
Harder in the sense that people won't be as engaged because it's more technology reliant. Yes. I would say that I think as the world evolves, so too do organizations, right? So my organization is on social media. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter feed, Instagram, etc. And I think it's just people will perhaps interact in a slightly different way. But at the end of the day, people who work with the Bronx is Blooming, they still come out and they still take care of a tree in a park, right? So even though you think the world is constantly evolving, there are pieces that are evolving, but we still need those trees, otherwise we do not have a planet that works, right? And all the rest will not work.
What are some events that you're planning next?
In the near future? Yeah. I think the best thing to think about for working with us is coming out in the coming spring. In the spring, we will have a lot of events, and you can find out about those on our social media, where, as I said, I'm sure it's going to go up there. Yes. and say, but like on our Facebook page, on our website, those things will be highlighted. And we generally have a couple of events each month that you can come out and engage in. We do a lot of weekend programming, weekend community programs. So if you have off of school on a Saturday, it's actually a lot of fun. I would say what we try to do with our programming is make it as fun as possible for all the people who are coming out. And that's everyone from someone who lives in the community and is a bit older to high school students to college students. So we try and have groups of all types of people from our communities at each of our projects. Yes. So as an individual person, if you wanted to come out to an event, right, you would see other high school students that you can connect to, college students that you can potentially ask questions to about, why they like the college they're at and what they're learning from school.
That's great. So where can people contact you?
They can contact us on our website at bronxisblooming.org. They can contact us on Facebook, which is Facebook, and then it's the Bronx is Blooming. And then we also are Bronx is Blooming, at Bronx is Blooming on Twitter and on Instagram as well.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. We'll see you next time right here on Open 2.0.